Competing with friend of the show, Raheem Mostert, for touches in Miami. It was basically a 50-50 split of snaps on the weekend.
He's available in basically 50% of Yahoo leagues. He plays the Cleveland Browns this week. Not necessarily a matchup that scares you here. Listen, Browns have been pretty good against the run recently, but they're so explosive on offense. I don't really think matchups matter. Wilson obviously used in the passing game as well. He out-touched Raheem Mostert 12-10 in his very first game with the Dolphins. He led the backfield in snaps and target share. Given Raheem the Dream's injury history, Wilson's familiarity with Mike McDaniel's offense, and just his production when he's been out there, to me, he's a priority add if you didn't already. We talked about him last week on the when the trade deadline happened, saying like, hey, grab him. You may be not starting him, but you should grab him. So there you go.
Yeah, I just want shares of this Dolphins offense now that Tua's back. Like, this could be the best offense in the league over the last 2 months of the season. And Raheem, he talked about it in our interview. Just having Tyreek and Jalen Waddle either side, it's like having Steph Curry and Klay Thompson spacing the floor. And yeah, I would be very much happy with picking up Jeff Wilson. Let's go to a darker situation, the Rams backfield, which has been dark for a few years now, basically ever since Todd Gurley left, outside of a brief kind of fun C.J. Anderson little cameo. But let's talk about Kyren Williams, who's available in 58% of leagues, and they're playing the Cardinals this week.
We've been talking about him for a while here. Came close to getting activated last week, and now it looks like this will be the week. There's opportunity there because no one has, pardon the pun, ran with this job, right? I mean, they've given shots to Ronnie Rivers, to Darrell Henderson, to Cam Akers multiple times. None of them have basically said like, hey, I'm going to be the guy. I know this for a fact that in Los Angeles, they love, with a capital L, Kyren Williams. Now, does that mean, is that going to translate to production? Is it still going to be a running back by committee? Do they still have an offensive line that struggles? 1,000%. But the Rams playing a bottom 10 run defense in the Arizona Cardinals over the last 4 weeks. They're a bottom 10 run defense. I do think there's a chance for Kyren Williams. And as we've talked about, like, at least it's different. Yes. It's variance. We know what doesn't work for the Rams, and it's all the guys they currently have. So we haven't seen Williams. He's worth picking up just to see if he ends up popping, if they find something in him that they haven't had. The Rams are in evaluate for next year mode. At least they should be.
Yep, and that's the thing, is that with Kyren Williams, it's to your point of the variance. Like, if he's good, then he'll keep the role. If Isaiah Pacheco's good, he might not keep the role because there's McKinnon and Clyde Edwards-Helaire. They don't even have that level of competition in Los Angeles at the moment. Are you dropping Darrell Henderson?
I don't have any problem with it. Like, on the season, he's running back 48 on a points per game basis. Like, he's barely a top 50 running back. I mean, he hasn't exceeded 56 total yards in a game since week 1. This year, when he's gotten 10 or more touches, he's averaging 9.7 fantasy points per game. I mean, just like, I got no problem dropping Darrell Henderson. And I'm not necessarily saying drop him for Kyren Williams, although I don't mind that. I'm just saying, like, yes, if you grab Darrell Henderson, if you've been holding on to him, like he's been bad, and a crowded backfield is going to add another guy this week.
Yep. All right, let's jump to Tampa Bay, who beat the vaunted Rams backfield on the weekend. Let's talk about Rachaad White, who saw a season high in touches. He's playing Seattle. They didn't want to face my Seahawks on American soil, so they chickened off to Germany. And Rachaad White.
I was trying to think. I was going to say something like in German, and I don't. What's a good German phrase? Like I was going to cheerio,
Guten
and
Tag.
Hola, guten Tag.
Yes, guten Tag.
Guten Tag.
Rachaad.
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah.
Yes, okay, there you go. Guten Tag, Rachaad White.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, Tom Brady needs to learn how to curse in
terrifying.
German.
Well, yeah, I think given his kind of general demeanor this year, he'd be very open to learning that.
1,000%.
Yeah, I think he will be cursing. I think the Seahawks might win that game. I think the Seahawks are just better than the Bucs right now. But
this is so. I've mentioned this rule before, right? I've talked about this, but my friend Chris Berman gave me this rule, which is the idea here is that anytime you see a team with a winning record getting points from a team with a losing record after like the third week in the season, you got to wait 3 weeks. Then you just bet them automatically. You don't think about it, you don't look at it, but just and it works about 2/3 of the time.
There you go.
And it worked. By the way, it worked last week. The Seahawks had a winning record, the Cardinals had a losing record, and the Cardinals were favored in that game.
Yep, we love the Seahawks. They end up winning comfortably.
Yes, they did. And That's the same thing that's happening here. The Buccaneers, who have a losing record, are favored against the Seahawks, who have a winning record.
Yep.
Give me the Seahawks.
Yeah.
Give me the Seahawks on the money line.
Yeah. Incredible to say, but right now I think Seattle has the better quarterback. Real life and fantasy. Fantasy, it's not close. Real life, you can make a case, but Geno Smith's playing at a higher level than Tom Brady right now.
Geno Smith more consistently.
Geno Smith doesn't need 58 pass attempts to get to 280 yards, which is basically what Tom Brady's doing every week. But let's talk about Rachaad White. Any interest in picking him up this week to play the Seahawks?
Yeah, I mean, they're trying to find different ways to generate offense. Like, he had 11 touches in Week 9, but that's a season high, right? He's had 3 or more receptions in 5 of his past 6 games. Like, Fournette seems to be wearing down. Single-digit carries, under 25 rushing yards, and 3 straight Francolini. So I want to pick up Rachaad White just because I think he's talented. I think that, he could easily get a bigger role as the season goes on. Obviously, if anything happens to Fournette, he would be a must-start. Do I feel good about starting him this week? I think he's a desperation flex play. I think he's viable in deeper leagues, and my assumption is that if you're in a deeper league, Rachaad White is already rostered in a deeper league, right? In the kind of league where you would start him this week, he's probably already rostered. Having said that, if he's available in your league, I do think Rachaad White is kind of interesting against the Seattle Seahawks. If you are desperate, again, if you have Fournette. So
I think you probably
he's more insurance than somebody I'm looking for as like a great start this week. Does that make sense?
That's the thing, and you need Leonard Fournette to lose his passport in Germany, basically, and only Rachaad White makes it back to the US. That happens all the time. Yeah, I've lost my passport in Germany.
Sure.
Let's talk about Chuba Hubbard, who, for all we know, owns his passport and is looking like he's going to play because he was limited in practice. He's missed the past 2 games with an ankle injury, but he gets a fairly favorable matchup against the Falcons on Thursday night. Is this still an offense that can support 2 running backs?
And he practiced today too, which is helpful. It's so hard to say because if you go off last week's tape, then no, it can't support anyone. But if you go off the previous 2 games prior to that, you're like, yeah, okay. They dominated the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And you're not worried about the Atlanta Falcons. I mean, the Falcons are a bad defense, right? They're 27th in the NFL in scoring defense over the last 4 weeks. Now, they're actually pretty good against the run. They're actually a top 5 run defense. But both Hubbard and Foreman are involved in the passing game. Hubbard more than Foreman. But they're not scared to dump it off to either guy here. I do think in a game in which they're probably going to have to move the ball with the running backs through the passing game, I'm still going to have Deontay Foreman ranked higher than Hubbard when my ranks come out this week just because I think he's the better running back. I think he's got the better chance at a touchdown based on his production so far. Even last week he didn't do anything, but still he had the big game 2 weeks ago. My expectation is it's probably 60-40 Foreman-Hubbard. But I do think Hubbard, who when he was active played on 86% of the third downs, and out-snapped Deontay Foreman 22-14 before leaving with that ankle injury in the fourth quarter the last time we saw him. I do think he's potentially interesting as a flex play this week in a PPR league.
Yep. Okay, let's quickly talk about a couple of Denver Broncos. Chase Edmonds available in 52% of leagues and Latavius Murray 69% of leagues. I don't want part of either of these guys going against the Tennessee defense, which is the best running defense in the league right now.
100%. And by the way, no issue dropping Melvin Gordon, or Latavius Murray, if you need roster space. It's going to be a 3-headed committee.
Yep.
On a low-scoring offense that has a very tough matchup here. I would probably rank them Murray, Gordon, Edmonds the rest of the way as we sit here, but you're certainly not feeling good about starting any of them against the Titans this week. And you sort of see how it plays out with Edmonds now in the fold. But it's
otherworldly rushing defense from the Titans, what they did to the Chiefs, basically making Andy Reid give up on the run entirely. Now, before we go to breaks, let's quickly talk some high-value insurance running backs. Headlined by Alexander Mattison, available in 55% of leagues.
He's the poster boy for it. So
every year. This is like 4 years running.
Every time you want to talk about insurance running backs, Alexander Mattison, just like Tony Pollard. But here's some other guys, James Cook in Buffalo. I think if anything were to happen to Singletary, I think it'd be Cook, not Nyheim Hines. That would be sort of the main guy. Jaylen Warren, you think about how badly it's gone for Najee Harris there. And Samaje Perine. If anything happens to Joe Mixon, who has dealt with injuries, we certainly feel a lot better about the Bengals running game after Joe Mixon's 5 touchdowns there.
Okay, let's go to break, Matthew. And when we come back, we'll talk wide receivers, including a wide receiver that the Chiefs, Patrick Mahomes, has been targeting in the red zone. He might be available on your wire.
All right. I'll tune in for that.
You better.
I'm contractually obligated to, yeah. Hey, it's Matthew Berry from NBC Sports and Rotoworld.com. Just want to thank you so much for watching what you just watched, or at least being too lazy to click out of it after the autoplay just kept it going. So either way, thank you so much for just letting it scroll by your screen. And now I'd like to ask you respectfully, please subscribe to the NFL on NBC YouTube channel for the latest NFL news, fantasy headlines from Rotoworld, and betting analysis from NBC Sports Edge.